Listen up. There's no more excuses.
We're empowering those who want the hustle by exposing the status quo.
The days of ordinary are over.
It's time to crush mediocrity and start discovering your greatest potential.
Welcome to the Hustle Nation. To the Hustle Nation. To the Hustle Nation. To the Hustle Nation.
Welcome back to another episode of the Hustle Nation podcast. Today, we're going to talk about client types that drain your energy. So if you've ever left a meeting thinking, my gosh, I am frustrated, I'm drained, or I'm just scratching my head, this one's for you. In this episode, I'm going to break down the 11 types of bad clients that derail progress, kill momentum, and test your patience. Why these patterns reveal deeper problems in leadership and in business. We're going to dive into how working with these people gives you a front row seat to what's broken in their organization and how that also impacts their leadership. More importantly, we're going to tie this all back to what this means for you if you have any of these red flags, any of these habits, and ultimately why recognizing these traits can really protect your time, energy, and results in business and in leadership. So whether you're a consultant, freelancer, agency owner, just an employee, just a young employee who wants to understand human behavior, who wants to get better at being a better leader, be more successful, this episode is for you. So let's dive into it. Let's start with person number one, the challenger guy, challenger gal. I've worked with businesses like this in marketing, where they're always questioning your ideas, skeptical of your experience, and they push back on every recommendation. It's almost like, why did you hire me if you don't like these ideas? You hired me because you want me to lead. You want me to tell you what to do and what the best options are. It doesn't matter if you've had a history of success with this person or not. They're always pushing back. And why is it draining? It's draining because you're constantly having to defend yourself. And what makes progress slow is they're always pushing. So you always have to explain yourself. Progress feels slow because it is. And it leaves you doubting yourself, your decisions, and your work. The worst part about that all is you tend to bring that home. Of all the people and all the behaviors you're going to experience, is it can really cause things like imposter syndrome. It can cause you to have a lack of confidence. It can cause people I've seen to want to change their career, change their job, change their industry. And we don't know it because we don't always see it, especially if you're working with someone in marketing or a creative. They tend to be passive people. They're not going to push back. They're going to let you challenge. And guess what? Those people are just going to challenge more, and they're going to start to challenge other people in their life. What does this signal? In my opinion, this signals a lack of confidence in their own leadership, and likely they're also risk adverse. I know businesses and business leaders that have plateaued, and they're afraid to innovate. They're afraid to trust outside experts for no other reason than and maybe they are arrogant. Maybe they are even as far as out of touch. They just don't get it. They're not open-minded. But ultimately, I think a lot of this comes back to confidence. If you had confidence in me, you had confidence in what I did, if you gave me a chance to prove myself, you might have that, right? But unfortunately, this is a tough one to deal with. But if we want to go a little bit deeper into the behavior, it's often insecurity. I think it's a fear of change or a desire to control because they don't have a clear vision or strategy themselves. That is probably underlying. That's probably it. They don't have a plan. They don't know what the plan is. They don't know what the plan should be. And they want to control, but they can't. It's the fear of the unknown. And I get it. But I think once a challenger, always a challenger. These are really hard people to work with. And maybe up there in the top 3 challenging types of clients. I've seen it myself, and it's almost relieving when these individuals end up pivoting and going a different direction. Number 2, you have the doubter. Who are they? They're pessimistic. They're negative about potential outcomes, always seeing the risks rather than the opportunities. So when they invest in my marketing services, my coaching program, what they see an expense on the balance sheet. They do not see an investment like purchasing stock. They don't see the ROI, they see the expense on the balance sheet first. And why is that draining? It's draining for all those reasons, but their negativity can sap your motivation, can sap your excitement, your mindset, your attitude. It creates resistance to trying new things, and it slows decision-making. It slows innovation. I feel much like the challenger, you're having to prove yourself. Why are you doubting this? What it signals could be the business is stuck. It's reactive. And I've talked a lot about this in the past where you have two types of people. You have reactive people and you have proactive people. Proactive is strategic. You're working off of a plan because you kind of know what's going to happen. You know what you want to do in the future. Reactive is the exact opposite. They're haphazard. They're flying by the seat of their pants. There is no plan. When life throws them curveballs, which happens all the time, they then have to adjust and pivot, and they often get burned out. They're frustrated. These people lack a growth mindset and they lack resilience. Often these are leaders who have been burned or are overwhelmed by uncertainty. Guess what? We've all been burned. We've all been overwhelmed. We're all stressed. But that does not mean we have to be a doubter. It just doesn't, right? So these are people that I think have hope. These are people that can be changed. And, I kind of relish these types of clients because I feel like over the long haul, when you can convert a doubter to a believer, these are people who are going to support you over and over and over again. But you have to get to the core of why are they doubting. You have to really cultivate that relationship and understand what are the fears that are holding them back. What are those doubts? And then keep giving them data and keep giving them small victories to change that. So the doubter is probably the least of my concern when it comes to clients. Number 3, we have the overtalker. I know this person well because I've been this person. Who are they? Well, these are people who get in meetings or on phone calls and that just go in circles. They go on and on and on and on. They can't let you go. They can't let you off the phone. They dominate the conversation. They tend to talk more than listen. They tend to talk more than ask questions. And they never make decisions or progress, very easily sidetracked. And I get it. People say, ADD, ADHD. I mean, yeah, is that possible? Sure. But that is a very broad, lame excuse for people who don't listen, who are too lazy to listen, who are too lazy to engage in a conversation. Can things get long? Yes. Should they? At times they should. There are times when we need to have a long conversation that may not feel like it made a lot of progress, but we shouldn't have a history of a lot of small talk in the beginning and end of meetings. People have a lot of shit to do. People have stress. People have personal things on their agenda. And they have things on their work that are on their agenda that need to get done. And so we need to be respectful of other people's time. But why is it draining? Not just for all those reasons, but it's time. We all know time is our most valuable asset. And our time is getting sucked by every device, electronic device that's out there. All the notifications, all the people on our team, our family, kids, etc., etc. But it frustrates my ability to drive projects forward. And it leaves me feeling stuck and sometimes in unproductive loops. What it signals is that people lack clear priorities. They lack sometimes maybe a conscious of their time or my time, what time it actually is on the clock. And I think people often forget because it's their time that it's your time too. And ultimately, these are people who, I think that because they don't have clear priorities, they don't have the decision-making authority. They want to talk through it. And I think that these are leaders who are undecisive and they're trying to avoid responsibility. And that's a broad statement, but these are people who can also be, not all, but sometimes I have a friend like this. They only talk about themselves. They only talk about the things they want to talk about. And they don't ask a lot of questions. Now, this is the majority of the overtalkers. They tend to be a little more self-centered, tend to be a little more arrogant. And even if they are, I do see a lack of priorities here. Because if you had the priorities, that you wouldn't be wasting this much time. If you knew how valuable time was and your employees' time, you wouldn't waste it. If you're having a conversation with 10 people and you go 15 minutes over, that's 15 minutes times 10. What does that mean to your payroll? What does that mean to your productivity? If you thought about it that way, you wouldn't be pissing away the time. But if we go a little bit deeper and look behind the behavior, it's probably insecurity, probably someone who's self-absorbed a little. And they're insecure about making the wrong calls. They're insecure, and it's also a culture that encourages endless discussion but fears commitment. I know, again, that's a bold statement for someone who talks a lot. But we tend to find that sometimes with these cultures that prioritize communication, it doesn't always prioritize speed and decision-making. That's the cold truth. Number 4 is the bad/slow communicator. I've had this client where multiple clients, you send them an email, crickets. Send them another email, crickets. And in marketing and coaching, there are a lot of times in projects that I need approvals, I need feedback, I need answers. And if they don't get back to me, I can't do anything. I sit on my hands, literally. And I've had multiple experiences with clients, big and small, who can barely afford the investment as it is, and they're paying for a service they're not using, simply because they didn't take 5 minutes to read the email or 10 minutes to read the brief and offer a couple pieces of feedback. That's hard. That's hard for me as an individual to provide a service to know that they're not doing it, because I'm only as good as the service. And if I can't do the service, I'm no good. That reflects upon me really bad. And so this is one that's just plain frustrating. Can you change this person? Yeah. But generally speaking, you don't, right? These people get sidetracked. But who are they? These are people who are hard to get timely responses from. Unclear or incomplete feedback leaves approvals always stuck in limbo. And that's part of it too. There's also a lack of detail orientation or a lack of wanting to be in the details. And this is why this person gets stuck here. They see your first email, but they don't respond to the second one. And why is it draining? It's draining because it blocks your workflow, causes delays, it causes you to have to pivot, and forces constant follow-ups that take energy away from your actual work. Now, this also gets to the point too where you don't want to be annoying. You don't want to annoy someone. You don't want to frustrate them. You don't want to come off with the wrong tone, but 3, 4, 5 emails over the course of 2 months, you're wondering, what the hell is this person paying me for? You almost feel like you have to be a dick because you won't get a response. And I know the outcome. I know the outcome is eventually, well, this is working out. And, kind of comes back to you, the service provider. And that's hard for us to swallow because it's their fault at the end of the day. What does this signal? To me, this signals poor internal communication or chaotic management. You got too much going on in your life. You're going to have things slip through the cracks. And if you're doing it, is your team going to do that? Hell yeah, they're going to do that because they're going to see it's okay for you to do it. So why can't they do it? So you don't have priorities. They're not going to have them either. This is a business that hasn't invested in clear communication structures, probably has a weaker culture overall, maybe a little bit anemic at times where, it's just up and down and a bit of a roller coaster. We dig into behind the behavior. These are people that can be overwhelmed, and they probably are overwhelmed teams and companies. They're doing too much, probably not enough support, and not enough employees on the staff. And there's a lack of leadership, accountability, just pure disorganization. This is the no urgency delay guy, number 5. Who are they? They drag their feet on everything. They're slow to make decisions. They delay approvals. They always say next month, let's wait a bit. Let me think about it. And they wish they would have started earlier. This is like the best time to plant a tree. It's not today. It's not tomorrow. It's not yesterday. It's 7 years ago, right? And so you don't want to get to that point where woulda, coulda, shoulda guy, right? Well, a lot of times when we're working with clients and we're making recommendations that get bulldozed, that get ignored, that get delayed because of a lot of these behaviors, it's the no urgency. And part of that is on me as a service provider or me as a leader to light that fire, to provide that urgency. And sometimes we have to get ahead of it. We have to create the urgency months in advance before we go for the big ask, whether it be upgrading their services or adding services or getting a team member ready for the next big thing. Is if we know that this person likes to delay, there are ways to get around it. But why is it draining? It's draining because you spend months planting seeds and they keep ignoring it, only for them to circle back frustrated with the results that never had a chance to happen. We see it, we've seen it, we know it's happening. These are difficult people to work with because generally, once a delay guy, always a delay guy. What does it signal? It signals a reactive mindset. We talked about this before. There's proactive and there's reactive. The reactive people tend to have a lack of urgency with no clear growth plan. These are leaders that aren't making decisions. They're letting time make them. And I think these are people that we have to kind of walk into decisions, right? We have to get them to come about communicating that decision for themselves out loud. And that can be hard. That's hard for a lot of leaders to do because there's a lot of convincing and persuading that needs to happen. Behind the behavior, it's a fear of commitment, paralysis by analysis, as I say. And a business maybe even in survival mode, pretending things will magically get better. I do see people who have swept things under the rug, kind of avoiding it. And that is part of it too. It's an avoidance guy. Delay guy can be avoidance guy. It could be avoiding challenging conversations we need to have, firing someone, investing in that big thing we should have invested in a long time ago. It's going to save our business, whether it be an asset or marketing or whatever. And this is one that, again, can be challenging because if you're a consultant or you're a coach, we have to create the urgency. We really do. And I always feel bad doing that because a lot of times it's like, well, this person's just trying to upsell me. Number 6 is Mr. Frugal. Who are they? Well, you know it. You've seen it, especially if you're in business and you're trying to sell. Mr. Frugal is reluctant to invest properly. They want everything at the cheapest plan possible. No ads, minimal budget, and then they wonder why results don't show up. It's frustrating. These are also can be Mr. Delay guy because they don't want to make that budget. And then they'll come back to you and ask you why you didn't get the results that we wanted, right? We're not going to get a Kia or buy a Kia and expect it to be a Corvette. But some people do. It's draining because you're constantly having to explain why cutting corners or cutting costs can feel like banging your head against the wall, right? You're resetting expectations or lowering expectations when they want the expectations to be higher. And some people know they're frugal and they know that they're going to get minimal results and they're okay with that. But it is hard to work with people who are constantly thinking about dialing back rather than dialing it up. And again, this is tough because we have to get people to see that investments are exactly that. They're not a cost on the balance sheet. They are investments that should generate an ROI. And these are folks that tend to have a little bit more of a negative mindset. And it signals exactly that, a mindset that is stuck in scarcity, often afraid to invest in growth or doesn't understand the value of marketing. In this case, the value of coaching, the value of adding staff. And it could indicate business is just plateaued. It's become to a point to where it can't get any better. And they think, well, we're here, we'll stay here, we'll be fine, we'll just cut costs. Well, that's not how you grow, that's how you maintain. And as we all know in most industries, status quo is, in my opinion, the opposite of going backward. Because we know people are going to try to outrank you and outperform you, outsell you, etc. Behind the behavior, it's fear of risk, tight cash flow. It's just not valuing these investments and these things as a strategic investment. See it a lot in marketing. That happens. Number 7, the time disrespecter. These are people that, much like some of the previous folks we've mentioned, they're always late to meetings. They run over. Calls are meetings during late nights, weekends, or expecting, kind of an immediate response. These are people that disrespect you. They disrespect your time. And if they did respect you, they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't. It's draining because it makes you feel undervalued. It adds stress to your schedule. You feel obligated to pivot away from things or obligated to respond. And it does cause burnout and frustration. What it signals, in my opinion, is just a lack of professionalism and respect for boundaries. No respect for boundaries at all. Often a sign of disorganized leaders, someone who assumes they're the most important person in the room or in this situation in your life. Behind the behavior, it's poor time management. It's possibly entitlement, simply being unaware of how their behavior impacts others, specifically you. And I see this where people constantly show up to meetings, but yet they have the expectation that you should show up on time to meetings. Weird. They know that the hour that they've booked is over, but they keep going. Or they keep asking questions. And that makes you late for another meeting with someone who may respect your time, but may also expect you to be on time. And so this can be very challenging to deal with, is managing that expectations. And there's ways around it. I've seen this a lot in working with clients, is you just have to tell people, look, I have a hard stop at the bottom of the hour. I've got to be at a call 5 minutes early. So I think in this case, these people aren't terribly difficult to work with. It's difficult when they're late. It's less difficult when they make you late because we can control those things. So I don't look at the time disrespecter as being the biggest issue on the list. Number 8, we have the value squeezer. Who are they? They're constantly asking for discounts, extra work without pay, changing their mind repeatedly, asking for more revisions on a project, and try to get just one more thing for free. I once had a client tell me I was providing an in-kind service for a nonprofit. And the guy literally said, I'm just trying to see how much juice I can squeeze out of this orange. And I'm not easily offended by that stuff. But I looked at it and I felt very disrespected. It's like, I'm providing a deeply discounted service. And what you're saying to me is that you're trying to take advantage of my time.
What's up, listeners? I just wanted to say thank you for being a part of the Hustle Nation community. We are absolutely thrilled and honored that you listen to our show. I wanted to take a break to share a special resource with you. I'm talking about our 2020 Vision Guide. This is a pivotal tool we use in our workshops where participants typically invest thousands of dollars for transformative experiences. Imagine having a crystal clear, actionable roadmap to not just meet, but exceed your personal and professional goals. That's the power of the 2020 Vision Guide. And here's the best part. We're offering it to you for free. This is your chance to leverage a tool that has propelled hundreds of people achieve unparalleled success. Visit our website now. I'm including the URL in the show notes below, where you can download our guide and start your journey toward clarity and achievement. Don't wait. It's time to create the life you deserve today. Now back to the show.
Just like, that it takes a lot of audacity to say stuff like that. And so I've seen people that they want to get as much as possible for free without any real care for you. It's draining for all those reasons, but it diminishes your worth and can make you feel used instead of respected or as a professional. What it signals is that they don't value your expertise. They don't see your work as fair exchange. And possibly this is a business that's struggling with cash flow. They want everything, but their leadership style undervalues partners and employees alike, everyone. This isn't just a you thing. This is what they do. This is who they are. And these are people that can't be arrogant, self-centered, self-absorbed. So when you look behind the behavior in business, budget constraints, entitlement, poor understanding of what the professional services actually cost, people who are likely a bit out of touch, have very minimal self-awareness. And these are folks where it's just, probably better off cutting ties with them all in all, because that's just not something you want to deal with. You want to deal with someone who supports you, respects you, values you. And these folks can be a little more challenging. Where it's important here, though, is to really set boundaries, as mentioned previously. Number 9, the undecisive one. Who are they? They can't make decisions. They flip-flop between options. They sometimes allow third-party feedback in, which can change everything. They rely heavily on others and their opinions, causing constant delays. I know, all too frustrating. Why it's draining? Because it stalls progress. It forces you to navigate endless back and forth with no clear direction. And if you have other people involved in the process doing work, it's taxing on them. Like, why can't you give me all the changes at once? Why can't you paint the picture all at one time? And it causes other people to get a bad brand as well, unfortunately. What it signals, the way I see it is it signals a lack of confidence or clarity in leadership, and just in the individual as well. Possibly a business without a clear vision or decision-making structure. That's bad culture. It's just bad culture. And ultimately, we want people to make decisions. We want speed. We should know that there is no perfect. So let's get started. I think it's okay to build the ship as you're flying it, or the plane as you're flying it. Behind the behavior, it's a fear of making mistakes, too many cooks in the kitchen, which can be very challenging to work with, or a culture that just avoids accountability, none of which are good. Behind the behavior, this is where oftentimes I get people to make a decision. I get them to validate that decision, and then I remind them of that decision. And I also try to tighten the boundaries a little bit on these decisions. Is like, if you want more revisions, if you want to go back and forth on this is going to cost more. This is an extra meeting, not just for you, but it is an extra meeting for me. And there are ways to work with these people to get them to change that behavior. And that's the good news. Number 10, and I have 10A and 10B here because they're basically the same person. 10A is the out of touch person, and 10B is the romanticizer. There are so many overlaps here. I'm putting them both at number 10. The out-of-touch person clings to the old school credentials, the outdated marketing methods, thinks that decades-old experience makes them an expert on almost anything. I had an example where I worked with a client that said that, hey, I got my college degree in marketing in 1988, and I know branding, I know marketing. I said, but we're talking about Google Ads and we're talking about social media. And they thought that just because they had a marketing degree or a PR degree that was 30 some odd years old, that warranted them being an expert on this topic. And it doesn't, right? That's a level of entitlement that is decades old thinking that very loosely connects to what we're talking about. Why is it draining? It's because these people dismiss new strategies. They get stuck on irrelevant details and often make confusing references that don't land with modern audiences. Sounds a lot like the romanticizer. What it signals, it's a business stuck in the past, resistant to evolve, clearly frustrated that there are other players in the industry passing them up, and they're potentially losing ground. They're losing relevance, and they know it, right? They're getting old. This is a midlife crisis individual, and they take comfort in familiarity. The fear of the unknown is very daunting to them. And moving on to the romanticizer is, you're going to hear sayings like, back in my day, or in the good old days, this is how it was done. And they're going to make references, at least in the marketing world, to radio ads and catalogs. And coaches are going to make reference to old CDs and DVDs and how they used to coach in person and how leadership used to be and how you used to be able to say things that are now offensive to people. Well, that's the problem, is that those are people who are out of touch, and we have to evolve. These people are not evolving. They're not willing to change. They don't want to change. They're just plain out of touch. And it's draining for a lot of reasons, but it can feel like they're dismissing your expertise. It stifles innovation, and their references can alienate people. And their behaviors alienate people, specifically young stakeholders. And so much of the workforce today is young people. This next generation or two generations of people coming in. So those people who are my age and older are really causing barriers or building barriers which are not helpful or proactive. What it signals is leadership that hasn't adapted their mindset, their strategy, and they're risking being outpaced by the competitors. In fact, they are being outpaced by the competitors. If you look behind the behavior, it's nostalgia mixed with insecurity. And I'm at an age where I love nostalgia, but insecurity is definitely a thing. And maybe it's a resistance to change or lack of current knowledge. They know they're old, but they want to tell you how it used to be because that's how it used to work. Wrapping up with number 11 is the unrealistic expectations client, which probably highlights 50% of the people you and I have worked with. It is to the point to where I put in my contracts that this is a marathon and not a sprint. Doesn't matter if we're talking about coaching, leadership, sales, marketing. We all know that nothing was built overnight, right? And these are people that no matter how clearly you set the expectations, how you temper them and bring them back over and over and over, they expect overnight results, viral success, or magic just because they're paying you. Why it's draining? They ignore reality. They resist strategy, and they often blame you or your company when their unrealistic timeline or outcome doesn't happen. What it signals? It's a lack of understanding about how business growth actually works. And it's a dangerous habit of outsourcing responsibility instead of owning it. And this is a trickle-down effect culture problem that I see in a lot of businesses. These are people who are a bit tone deaf. They don't have the self-awareness, and other people start doing it. And this can really be a culture killer in a lot of cases. Behind the behavior, it's an impatience, it's an ego, it's an inexperience thing possibly. And sometimes they're desperate. Other times they just don't respect the process. I tend to find it's a little bit of both. But the kicker here, they want a miracle. Not a marketing partner, not a coaching partner, not a trusted resource that they know can move the needle over time. They are reactive, not proactive individuals. So that wraps up the 11 behaviors. I'd be very curious what I missed. I intentionally didn't go too deep here because I know that there are more, but I want to hear from you. I want to know which ones you are, which ones are you not. And think about this more importantly as you as a leader, as an employee of your company. And if you're encountering 1, 2, or 3 of these client behaviors, I want to know because it's frustrating. It's very frustrating, but it's manageable. But when you see multiple, and I'm talking about 2, 3, or 4 of these traits combined in the same person, it sends a much bigger signal. Here's what it likely means for you or your company, whether this be you, a friend, a family member, an employee, or anyone else. To me, these are leadership red flags. These are behaviors that often point to leaders or individuals who struggle with clarity, decisiveness, adaptability. They might lack confidence, be resistant to change, or have poor self-awareness. Organizational impact. If the leader exhibits several of these traits, it usually trickles down into their team and culture, as I've mentioned already. You'll often see miscommunication, you'll see delays, low morale, and more importantly, stagnant, plateaued business. Business health warning signs. A leader who's a chronic challenger or demonstrates 3 or 4 of these behaviors will be a doubter. They'll be a micromanager, a value squeezer, and may unintentionally create bottlenecks. And believe me, they do. They will. They have. They'll drain creativity and hamper growth. That's exceptionally challenging in any business that's looking to grow, that's looking to build sustainability, but they may also foster a culture of fear, indecision, and entitlement. And these are all culture killers. It's not good for anyone. So we have to identify these, and we have to work on getting people to also self-identify them as well. Why they matter? Because the way they treat external partners like you often mirrors how they lead internally. They treat their family like that. They might treat their staff like that or their colleagues like that. If they're hard to work with as a client, imagine the challenges their own employees face. And this can result in high turnover, missed opportunities, and failure to keep up with the market. We all know that's the cold hard truth. Final thought, I think you want to recognize these signs. This isn't just about clients and becoming a better client to others. This is also about red flags and what it could mean for you as a leader. what it could mean for you as an employee and your team and your culture. So let's recognize that these isn't just about vetting frustrations, it's about understanding the big picture here. This should help you protect your own time, your energy, and choose your clients wisely. If you're in a leadership role, reflect on these traits and ask yourself, are you fostering clarity, respect, and decisiveness? Or could some of these client behaviors be a mirror for you and your own stalled growth opportunities? Either way, let us know. What did you think about the episode? Where are your red flags? Do you have red flags? Put them in the comment below, and thanks for tuning in to another episode.